to watch the recording again. So we are pinning the video, so only the people speaking, the presenters or the panelists and the moderator will be recorded. So this means you can choose to keep your video on or off. If you speak, of course, the recording will pick up your voice, and you can type your questions in the chat box if you prefer. And if you're shy, you can private message me. I will help you to read out the question or comment. And please keep your audio mute whenever you're not speaking. Otherwise, we will pick up the background noise. So please remember the best place to get the latest updates, announcements, any changes is the Sugar and Spice Facebook group. And we ask that you don't contact other participants outside of the festival without their consent. We just want to make sure that people in the festival feel safe, they don't feel unsafe. And of course, you can private message them or ask for permission before messaging them offline. For emotional support, you can email us at emotionalsupport@sugarandspice.asia. Okay, so we have this panel, the Indian Sexuality and Advocacy panel. This is a very important session for me because I think we all know about the difficulties around the lack of sex education in India. And the panel that we have gathered, they are very brave people speaking up about sexuality and trying to make a positive difference in their own country. And because of the nature of how difficult sex education is in India, so I always want to make sure that Sugar and Spice will always have Indian representative. And so the moderator that we have is a young person who is a junior in Alma College, Michigan, US, who studied political science with a program of emphasis on international relations and a minor in environmental studies. So she has been passionate about Model UN since 8th grade and been part of Alma College Model UN team since her sophomore year. And okay, so being an active participant with Pratisanti since April, passionate about human rights, peace building, women and children. So so our moderator is Pratati Nanth. Okay.
It's okay.
Never mind, you introduce yourself and the panel. So I'll just hand over the time to our moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martha. Hi everyone, I'm Prarthita. As Martha said, I'm currently a junior at Alma College in Michigan. And I have been working with Pratisanti, whose founder is Niyati, since April this year. I absolutely love the work we do and the amount of support I get from the entire organization. It's very amazing how a bunch of college kids just started this organization that talks about reproductive health and sexual awareness in focusing on issues that is very pertinent to the current political scenario in the Indian society. And I think this is like one of those times with like if I talk in terms of waves of feminism, this is like probably one of the biggest waves of feminism coming up right now. And us having a panel like this where we talk about Indian sexuality and advocacy, I think it's very awesome. Um, so I was wondering if the panelists would like to go ahead and introduce themselves. Niyati, would you like to start?
Yes, sure. I think you've already covered the organization so well. But hi, everyone. I'm Niyati Sharma, and I'm the founder and director of Pratisandhi Foundation. We're essentially, a youth collective that has come together, and we set up an organization that works towards sexual health and education in India, primarily amongst adolescents and youth. I'm currently in my second year at the University of British Columbia. I'm pursuing a degree in psychology. So that's really all that I'm up to, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Niyati. Mr. Sanjay, if
Yeah,
you'd like to go
yeah.
ahead.
I'm Sanjay Sachdev. I'm chairman of Love Commandos. the only organization working nationwide for the cause of lovers in distress and facing threats in the name of so-called honor, including killing and violence. We are working now, extending our work to other countries in Southeast Asia because we feel the same problem, same scenario prevails everywhere, whether it is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, or any country in this region. And this region is very important because as far as sexuology is concerned, when I was student in my late 60s or early 70s, I used to hear that sex education is going to be part of school education. My children have graduated, but that has become a doctor and all that. But still, I'm going to see the day when it is being added in the subject. So many governments have changed, many political parties in center and state. Almost everybody has faced it, but nobody has still date touched the subject. Had sex education been made a part of the syllabus, so many problems in this country, including the basic problem that we are feeling today of violence against females or rape, etc., there could have been much lesser ratio or incident. But no political party, I think, has any agenda on it. Everybody is criminally silent, each and everyone. So we are working. Now we are seeing a new era in the last 3 days. 4 state governments have announced that they will be bringing a new law. They will be controlling the marriages in the name of love jihad. I fail to understand how can love be added with jihad. Jihad is a war. Love is love. Both can go together. But again, they have some political agendas. Their home minister in the central government, state minister of state, said in the parliament, there is no word in love jihad. The state governments are bringing law. Supreme Court has directed every state, every district administration, police administration to extend full help to intercaste and interreligious love couples. But now they are trying to get new ways to suppress. Let us see what happens. We shall continue to fight for the cause of the youth, especially because these lovers need more sex education, I believe. They are nearer to sex, and many times they do such things which should not be there. So they must be taught. There should be some center. There should be some initiative at the governmental level to introduce sex education in our education system.
Very true points made, Mr. Sanjoy. Pallavi, would you like to give the introduction to
Yeah,
everyone up
yes.
here? Awesome.
So I am the founder of a sex positivity startup, Red Boom, and I've been working here in this field for 3 years. And before that, I worked for a decade in corporate. My reason to start this initiative in India, a woman talking about sex, and I take a very different approach. I bring out the stories rather than because I think people are in a people need a space to talk which is non-judgmental and which is really dedicated for sexuality. Like, okay, you come here and this is a space where all the discussions are happening. So I think that there is a thriving sex consumerist culture which is through media, porn, and they set up unrealistic ideals and how sex is supposed to be like. Sex is like a score. This is something where people. I go by my personal conversations where I've seen men bragging about the number of partners they have slept with, and they have no fucking idea about what a woman's clitoris is. So you know so I think, okay, it's high time. Like, there are very rare women in this country, Niyati, and maybe one or two other. There is one more Niyati, if you know. There is Niyati Shah also. So they're just, I can count on my hands. Like, okay, the number of people who are working in the space of sexuality, I can count on my hands, like 10 people. And India is a population, we know, 132 or 1 crores people. So I think, yeah, we are doing kick-ass work. Yes.
Thank you very much, Pallavi, about the whole point about how guys just go about bragging about the number of female partners they've had when they cannot even find the female sex organs. It's a sad story, but it's true. And given that India has one of the biggest youth population in this world, talking about sexual awareness and having a proper sex education system in school is very important. So I can start with all the questions I have for you all. Um, Niti, I have a question for you. Since like, what do you think about like the attitude of India is like in terms of homosexuality? Like, how are we taking it in? Like, are we being accepting? Are we like still resisting it? What do you think?
I think that especially, I think decriminalization did make a difference in terms of perspectives. At least, like the people that I've been interacting with, a lot of students, I feel. So right now we're doing a Bridging Gaps program, with really young students. So, we've got school going students who are in ninth grade, in 10th grade. And I asked them what do they know about, the entire LGBTQ community. And they said it was decriminalized, right? And I was like, I mean, that's a start. At least you know that. And, that's kind of a starting point for them to begin to understand the community, which I think it's a milestone, right? So I think that really made a difference. I still think there is a lot of resistance. It has not made any of the issues go away. We get, DMs so often. Like, I think just a few weeks ago, I got a DM from, this artist that we've worked with in the past. And she told me, I'm living with my partner and my mom has like filed a case against my partner, even though I'm an adult and, I can have a live-in relationship with my partner. Um, and she was just kind of very confused, like, what do I do? Because, her parents were like, no, like this, her partner has kidnapped her or something. So, it creates a lot of mental turmoil and it can create a lot of hurdles for people. So I think that mentality has not gone away yet. I think there are a lot more conversations today, which is again a plus. But again, changing mindsets doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one day. There is a constant conversation. I also think one thing that, even though we never actually explicitly discuss it as part of the spectrum, but I think intersex people are very often left out of the conversation. Again, going by, the workshop I had with these students, they had a very rudimentary understanding of what transgender means, what, being a lesbian means. And it was great to see that. And then I asked them what, what does being intersex mean? And they had no idea. They had never heard the word. They were like, what is this? And, you would expect this would be taught because this is plain biology, right? So it was very surprising. I think in some areas we're really, really lagging behind. And, even though the conversation has started, just talking about it is also not enough. People are still facing challenges from their families, from their societies. They can't get married, they can't live in peace. So I think those are really the on ground issues that we need to tackle. And I think, in general as well, like Love Commandos is also doing such, taking so many strides in making sure that these people have actual on ground support and help, like having legal aid, knowing what practical steps to take. Because for me, as someone who's, like heterosexual, it's very easy to say, hey, let's talk about this, and everything's going to go away when we talk about it. That's not what's going to happen. People who are still facing those on ground issues are going to keep facing them. So I think really that on ground change is yet to come.
Very well said. I do agree with you, considering we've never, like, I don't think even we've ever learned in schools about like transgenders and the LGBTQ community. I think we touched upon it like in 11th, 12th psychology, and that was it, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, thank you so much, Niyati. Pallavi, I have a question for you. What do you think about the influence of like parent adolescents communication in like shaping their minds about, their reproductive health, or like them being a person with secondary sexual characteristics who might be engaging in acts like those, and, you know, do you think like a conversation between a father and a son about sex makes it easier, or do you think it like how do you think it happens in India? Because it's pretty sure it's different in the Western countries.
So you're talking about the sex talk between the parent and the child, or is there any? Okay, okay. So I'm a parent myself. I'm a mother to a 9-year-old boy, and the first thing I say, preach what you practice. Okay. So for me, what I have done is he knows that this is breast, or he knows that this is penis. And it took my mother a lot of time to call penis the penis. So she was calling some other name. So she would either hint it or she would call it no, like some or the other wacky word. And I would say, no, it's penis. And so, it starts from there. It starts from our identity. Like we are not able to, when the child is growing up, we take so pride when he talks about all the body parts. Hey, this is finger, this is little finger, this is middle finger, nose, everything. Like we actually ask the child, tell me what's this. But this middle part is completely this central part. One of my interns said that she used that CP. So she says this is called central part. The central part is completely invisible. It doesn't even come. Yeah. So, so I think anatomy science provides us wonderful tools that Praritha is not able to hold a laugh. So anatomy, I think every parent should at least start from the anatomy. Like, okay, this is my body part, which is important because one, it helps the child to stand up for their sexual rights. Say, if I don't want a person to penetrate myself, I should be able to say, hey, you can't touch my vagina. For a lot of time, I was stuck saying the word. I couldn't even say this word. And I think giving the language, talking about it makes us also feel empowered. So I think conversation is important too. I think parents should also talk about their own stories of struggle, of adulthood. Okay, like what issues they face through. I'm sure that my parents also have some stories of sexuality. Like I came to know much later that my father kissed my aunt, after marriage, and my mother just said that, ye hua tha aur we all fought, and then he said apologize. So they have their own stories. So as children, growing up children, adolescent children, they would love to know how their parents manage this. We never get there, that is very forbidden talk between a parent and a child. Like, okay, I got one of my interns to write stories of motherhood sexuality, and she talked about the sexuality of her mother, that her mother is very liberal feminist, but when she became a mother, she kind of just did away with her, that kind of womanhood. Like, okay, she's a woman, she's a sexual woman. So I think, yeah, that's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Pallavi. I mean, completely agreed on the fact that I think I can say it from a very personal experience that till date, I'm 21, I'm going to be 22 in 2 months. I still cannot talk to my parents about this. Like, I can't. It's something that is from inside me, which is like stopping me. That no, it's a bad word. I cannot talk about this. This is something. It's an untouchable subject, which shouldn't happen because our parents gave birth to us, and we should be open to talk to them about anything and everything. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter if you end up in the jail, but they should know. Um, Sanjay sir, I have a question for you. Since I know like Love Commandos works a lot with honor killing and stuff, do you, in comparison to like let's say 20 years ago and today, how do you has like the rate of honor killing like increased or like decreased? And even like in terms of social media and like television and movies, like I one of the recent movies that came out like a year or two ago, Dhadak, which had Sri Devi's daughter in that, like because that movie did not promote honor killing, I'm sorry, but they talked about honor killing because they got killed in the end by their family members. So do you think like having movies representing honor killing and like having conversations on those, like do you think any changes have come in the last 20 years per se?
First of all, I must thank you all the three young people and talking on this subject. Go online. And I heard Neti, she says that she is holding seminars. I heard Pallavi, she talks of body parts. Both are talking very factual, truthful things. But when we come to ground, we have to see the reality. We have to face the reality. We feel that if these things are taught, there can be lesser problems in the country. But who is going to take the initiative? That is the question. Love Commandos has been working for over 10 years. I don't know how God gave us strength that we were able to help over 60,000 young couples all over the country. But when we come to mindset, even those boys and girls who have married in love, male chauvinism is there, still there, in the minds of the boys. And we have been saying many times that we are thankful to our daughters who bring these boys to a situation that they continue in a committed relationship. And when we live in society, if a boy has friendship with 4 girls, his parents, others will say, oh, he is a big hero having 4 girlfriends. If a girl is having 4 boyfriends, she will be called characterless. Why two standards of life? Yes, there is a question that if I'm romantic, yes. That's why I say I'm sweet 18 with 42 years of experience. My experience increases everywhere. Another question that came about forced marriages. India, not only India, but India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all other countries in this subcontinent are facing this problem of forced marriages. All these countries have signed International Declaration of Human Rights in the UN, wherein it is mentioned that there will be only marriage by choice. But what is happening? What is happening? Indian Parliament made a law, Act number 2 of 1978, omitting provisionship of guardianship from marriages. But what is the practical? All those leaders who sit inside the parliament, who sat inside the parliament, who sit inside the assemblies, and who sat inside the assembly, and bureaucrats, including police officers, are attending marriages which are done by arrangement. If they are not obeying the law made by them, who will? When we raise this question, we get many abuses, many threats. We are always under death and threat, but we are continuing. It's not that easy. However, we feel that the entire world is a family. We believe in sex beyond borders, love beyond borders. Because sexual life is a result of love life. If there is no love and forcing sex, that will never be giving any happiness. But if it is voluntary, it is not forced, then that will generate happiness in both of the people, both of the persons. No, I never hate of being an Indian. I'm proud of being an Indian, and I want to be instrumental in changing the mindset of my countrymen. So where I was talking that in a love marriage even, the male chauvinism is not going. We need to work on that. That education will come when there will be sex education. Because, but what happens? Even at the primary school level, we tell our daughters to be away from boys. And if a boy plays with girls, people tease him. See, this small chick plays with girls. We have so many co-education schools. I remember 3-4 years ago when Akhilesh Yadav was Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, he went to a university in Moradabad. All the students were crying at the top of their voice. Nobody was prepared to hear to anybody. He inquired, because the university administration has made seating arrangements that boys will sit on one side and girls on one side. And they were all angry. Now Akhilesh Yadav said, look, I had a love marriage, and love grooms at these educational levels, educational institutes. So first allow them to sit as they want. Why shall the university or government govern their way of sitting? But in our country, we have special schools for females, girls. Yes, there is a need, but not to the extent that we are having. In our constitution, we say there cannot be any discrimination on basis of gender. And it is there everywhere. Even on the question of marriage, India is a backward country. Because boy has to be elder, 21, than the girl 18. World over, the common marriageable age of boy and girl is 18. But why shall the boy be older in India? Nobody is answering. There are so many restrictions in the name of spindle. Why shall government have any rule? The Supreme Court has in Hadia case said that even the NIA has no authority to verify a marriage. But marriage of every love couple is being verified by a police constable, head constable, and sub-inspector everywhere in the country. Is it not anarchy? Because they have no practical knowledge, no exact knowledge, neither of sexual life nor of law. That is why there is a need of organization like Love Commando. We believe that young boys and girls should form small groups. Now technology is there, WhatsApp groups and other things will form. In every nook and corner of this country and all other countries in the nearby. We have been making appeals to youth in Pakistan, Bangladesh and other countries also. So that if a young couple is in distress, somebody is going to attack, somebody is something like that, they should just send a message to the group. Somewhere it should be spread to others. And suppose 200, 400 young lovers reach the venue where one couple was being targeted. So those targeting will run away. What happens? The couple is left alone, he is fighting, or both are fighting to save their own lives. There is nobody to support them. The youth are not awakening, which they should. But at the same time, I must congratulate Pallavi and Neti both for their initiative. Maybe in one school, maybe in 10 schools, maybe in 10 villages. But at least there is some beginning. Rome was not built in a day. I'm glad that these two young daughters have done a beginning. And we will go forward.
That's really lovely of Sanjay to say.
Thank you so much.
Just I read a question about dress. Now, in the Indian culture, Manipuri dress is there. In the Indian culture, choli is there. How is my this friend saying that people analyze the character of girls on dresses. Then what about boys with only shorts and other things coming out on the street? At least girls don't do like that. You must respect and you must honor their privacy, right to privacy. That let them wear what they want. You are nobody to decide.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I would that's been posed by Martha in the group. I would like to start with a question that is very interesting to me. Like it's an open panel question. Like, have any of you ever hate being Indian? Like, I think with sometimes as as a person, I sometimes feel that maybe I shouldn't have been born in this country with the amount of cases we get every single day of rape and acid attacks. Like a girl is getting murdered in the middle of the road in broad daylight and no one is doing anything about it. Like those kind of things, I think personally as an Indian, they shock me to my very core. And I think uh, I can say this for myself that w- any any and every girl in this country at one point or the other have gotten catcalled, have gotten sexually harassed by in a public space, by a friend or by your neighbor or even like your distant relatives for that matter. But yeah, sometimes I personally feel that it's not a good thing. I just want to get away from this country and never come back. But when I see changes like and having organizations here like Prati Sandhi and Love Commandos, and they they try to bridge the gap that should have been closed a long time ago. But everything takes a start. What do you guys think? I'm so sorry, I just took over the question.
Madam
Um,
Nath, as I already said, I feel proud of being an Indian. There can be shortcomings in my society. There can be shortcomings in the people of my land. We owe some responsibility to this society. Why can't we become instruments of change? Like that, you also think. Like that, let everybody think. Today we will be 4, tomorrow we may be 8, then we may be 80, then we may be 8,000. We should not shy away. We should not run away from our responsibility to the nation. That is the acts that are getting bad names for my country in the world. We should come out to eliminate this. There were multiple marriages in Hindus. Somebody brought a revolution. When that person came, he was criticized like anything. Today Hindus have one wife. Even if I see in the Muslims, there is a very small number, very small number who have more than one wife. But people go on asking or blaming them on religious issues. We should not be. We must act as Indians. As you said that when I read a story that a girl was killed in broad daylight. Yes, we get shattered. Many times we weep. But then ask our volunteers all over to be ready to save. Many times our volunteers were injured in saving people like that. We never give publicity to that. But we are proud of our backbone, the volunteers. One has to do the beginning. If you don't begin, then you will have to continue facing. Why do you want Bhagat Singh to get birth in the neighbor's home? think that Shahid Bhagat Singh is in your home. The nation will change. The image of my country will change. We all should have that commitment. And I hope in coming days that will happen. Like when we started Love Commandos, we had only our shelter. But slowly, when we helped so many couples, today we are having 500 plus, nearing 600 makeshift shelters, which are places of normal stay of couples helped by us in the past. So the change is in the making. Because we had a positive thinking that look, all of them will become instrument of change. Okay, out of 60,000 couples, hardly 600 couples, the percentage is very low, who have been able to offer help to others. But it is emboldening us. At least some people are coming. Likewise, like you daughters have taken a stand on the issue, I believe more daughters will come out in open and discuss this issue of sexual discrimination, which is a
Completely.
major problem in this country.
Completely agreed, Mr. Sanjay. I'm so sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to ask a couple of questions to others if that's okay.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Niyati, I have a question for you in the group chat. What do you think when people say that, you're too young and, you don't know what you're like talking about? I think, like, I'm not going to say the last word because I just don't want to say that out loud because I'm around family and children. But what do you think about it? Like, considering you're a second year in college.
So it's actually really interesting to me when people say something like, you're too young. It's just like, what do you mean I'm too young to know about my own body? Like, am I too young to recognize abuse? Like, is that what you're getting at? Or am I too young to know that people do have toxic behavior and how I should learn to set boundaries? Am I too young to know no means no? Like, what do you mean when you say I'm too young? So I think that is something that lots of people are unable to justify. I think what also happens is people end up thinking, oh, hey, you're talking about sex education, so that must mean you're teaching people how to have sex. No, like, I'm not. And I'm not, like, I've gotten so many people have like, I've gotten so much hate about it. That you're teaching young children about sex and, you're spoiling them, or, you're like ruining their childhood. And I'm like, I'm not teaching them how to have sex, right? Like, I'm not going to a 10-year-old and saying, hey, look, this is what sex is like and what it looks like. And, this is what is wrong with porn. No, sex education has to happen in an age appropriate way. And it has to happen in a culturally sensitive way as well. Just because I feel something doesn't mean somebody else will agree with me. All right. And I think this is something that's very important to also point out, that sometimes when you kind of, go into somebody's face and you're like, listen to me, like I am right, they're less likely to listen to you. Like, I have seen this every time I have an argument with my dad. I have seen it happen. If I'm in his face and I'm just like, no, you're wrong, he's going to fight me harder, But if I'm like, you're right, but think of it this way. I think, when you have like a slightly more discourse, when it's slightly more subtle, I think then, people are more receptive to information. I get it so often that, you're too young, you can't do this. What is the use of having college kids teach, other college kids or younger students? And I'm just like, where is the flaw in that? Because when I was in school, I was being taught about menstruation from somebody who was 40 years, 50 years elder to me. Lovely, lovely woman, but I didn't connect with her and I didn't relate to her. I was like, what are you talking about, right? Like, nowadays, this happened in my school, I think, once, where I think this one boy had found a pad that a girl had kept in her bag, and like it was out and everybody was trying to understand it, and they were like, oh my god, what is this? Because the boys hadn't been taught. And, nobody felt comfortable asking questions because they felt, even our school counselors, even the person who took our session, they feel that there is such a barrier. And, like I can't talk to my own parents or I can't talk to my own relatives about something like that. What makes you think I'm going to go to another person who I think comes from like the same mindset, and I'm not even going to try in all likelihood. Whereas when you have somebody who's closer to your age group or maybe, slightly elder, slightly younger, then you feel like, hey, you've likely been through what I'm talking about. You've likely seen this. And it's not that people with more experience have not seen it or people who are elder to you have not seen it. It's just like this connection factor that's there. Right? Usually when like school students are talking to me, they feel like, you were there 2 years ago versus somebody who was there like 40 years ago. Right? So I think that is something that people often miss out when they start saying things like you're too young. And again, like I said in the first go, what do you mean by too young? Like too young to know what? Right? Like I was born from a woman's vagina. Like I think was I too young for that? Like what do you mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think that's something that people often miss out. So that's usually my response to them. And it usually works.
I mean, that is a very on the face answer to people who will constantly be like, you're too young for this. Um, and I completely agree with your whole point of view. I think that was I think personally, that was one of the biggest reasons why I joined Prati Sandhi when I came across the organization and I wanted to do something nice in my own country. So it was like an amazing platform for me. Um, I have a question for Pallavi. It's in the group chat. It's about like, do you worry like if your son will, ever grow up being judged that her mother is a sex educator in India? Like, you
Mm.
don't.
So a lot of people they identify with my work and they always give, send appreciations in that personal inbox so that no one actually sees that they are appreciating me. Okay, so I can understand the psyche of the people. Like even to appreciate someone, see, it's not even about talking about sex, but just connecting. People think twice before publicly supporting someone who is talking about sex. Okay, Niyati must have been through this where we are getting public support, but there is a lot of private support, okay, that goes into our inboxes. Yes, it was a man that I dated in the past, and he said that your son, he will be asked questions in the school, and this has happened with a sex educator. Her name is Kaya Jeevan in Netherlands, where her children. So she's also mother, and she said that my kids, when they went to school, and they said to my kids that your mother is a prostitute and she is a sex educator. And then she said that no, then the kids asked her, and then she said no. And that was like 15 years back when there was not much of an internet. Thankfully the internet is there. So uh, there are two things. That one, I strategically ensure that I get covered in media. I get the support of public, leading media houses, so that I was very fortunate. And due to working in a niche space, I got covered in a lot of publications. So that was something when people say, oh, this girl talks about sex, but she's in Hindu. There is a feature story. So they were like kind of confounded at how is it possible? How talking about sex gets someone a cover page? So I think this is where media has been helpful in mainstreaming it. Like, okay, because the newspapers are being read by thousands and millions. So that helped me in being the part and not being aloof. Secondly, this is what my endeavor is, to accord dignity to this subject, so that by the time my son grows up, which is like 4 5 years from now, they people should already start looking at sex in a different light. This is what my endeavor is. So I think, yeah.
I think it's so interesting because, like, I see, like, when I think about that question, I see Pallavi as like that, that cool mom in the series Sex Education, who's just like the sex therapist and like she's giving advice, and her son is also just like dedicated to the cause and everything. I think that'd be very cool.
My son knows about my last boyfriend, so like he talks about, like, I was actually going through a heartbreak. I'm still going through, like, not completely over it. And yesterday I was very morose, and he said, I know you're remembering that man. That's the conversation.
Love
And he counsels me then. He counsels me. Why are you thinking about him? He doesn't think about you. You also don't think about him. Like, that's the way.
I will add up to your point, and I have another question for you, and it's open for anyone to answer. But, when we were talking about, having sex education in school and talking about, having an awareness of sexuality, what do you think happens to the mental health of that person? Like, and how do we like put all the pieces of the puzzle together, with which includes mental health, because mental health for sure is a very important topic and a very important concern when it comes to reproductive health and sexual health, and even like and 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 it's like using antidepressants. Do you think like antidepressants have an effect on us, like the ones who use it on their, because if I'm not wrong, there are studies which shows that I, I'm not sure. Some of them said that it increases their sex drive, some of them says it completely diminishes. So do you think like even those kind of things affect a person altogether? Like, what do you think?
Should I just go first? I think I'll
Yeah,
just go
sure, go
first.
ahead. I'm so sorry, Niyati.
No,
I was
that's
going to
okay.
say your name.
That's okay. No, so I definitely think that, you're right, mental health is a very, very important component of sexual health. I can't speak exactly to, the exact effect of antidepressants, because, I've not studied that. I'm not very familiar with the research, but I would assume that, there is some kind of impact, especially, of course, if you're, dealing with any kind of mental health challenge or issue or disorder, even if you're diagnosed. There's obviously hurdles, and, it will impact different aspects of your life. Not just your sexual life, it'll impact your social life, it'll impact your work. So, I mean, that's kind of, why they're recognized issues and why you need a lot of professional support for them. So yeah, I think there's definitely an impact there. As far as teaching people goes about it, I think a lot of these questions just kind of, you know, fall into place when you start teaching. Like, when I'm talking about boundaries with somebody, and when I'm saying, hey, like, this is why it's important to set boundaries, automatically it's almost an immediate question from students that, like, what's going to happen if I don't have boundaries, right? Or like, what if somebody's violating my boundaries? How's that going to make me feel? So just kind of that reflection process of why these things are important. We can't talk about them in like an abstract sense and be like, okay, boundaries are here, mental health is there, relationships are there. No, they're all kind of linked together, right? So I think once you start teaching them, and once you engage with the students, and when there's a process of reflection of, how is this applicable to my life, it automatically flows from there. Like, mental health is not going to be a separate conversation. It's just going to kind of flow in and merge very, very smoothly, if I may say. So yeah, I think that would be kind of my take on it.
Thank you, Niyati. I mean, that does make sense. I mean, it's very interesting. Pallavi, do you have anything to add to what Niyati said? Or
Sorry, what was the question?
my question was, it was about like how mental health, and how do we put the pieces of the puzzle together, where we put mental health together and the reproductive health together and sexual health together, and then make them understand that it's okay, even if you're having depression, it's okay if you just want to have sex. It's literally that, because I know it happens.
Okay, so talking about mental health and reproductive health, is that the question?
Yes,
How?
mental health, reproductive health, and sexual wellness. It's like, how are they all interconnected, and like how do
Oh,
we talk
yes,
about
I think that's a wonderful question. See, I think, sexual health is also about safe sex. It's also about pleasurable sex. It's Sexual health is also about keeping the boundary so that you don't get sexually assaulted. So not just from the disease point of view, but also about your own well-being, about the bodily well-being. And I tell you this, Prathita, that a lot of times when, even being a single mother, okay, I meet men, And if ever this conversation on sex happens, it took me so much of time to even insist on a test. Like, I want you to, and they're like, what? I am healthy. I'm like, how do you know you are healthy? Like, no, I feel healthy. And this is where they actually, and they have been promiscuous. Some of them are promiscuous. Some of them have had unprotected sex with so many women. And they say, no, I'm healthy because I feel healthy. And it took me a lot of time. And I can imagine what an adolescent would be going through, or someone at the age of 18, 19, because if as a founder of a sex positive startup, this is my state that now I'm insisting that no, I'm not wrong. I'm not being insane or paranoid. Like, people said, oh, you are too paranoid about STDs and AIDS and everything. But I say, you call it paranoia or what, but I insist on a test. I think this is where we kind of make the people who is asking for something which is very valid, that test is important because you don't know what that other person has been through. You really can't trust them, that okay, you can't trust their words, you need to trust the proof. So and it takes a toll on the mental health, because I tell you, I had a relationship failure with a person who actually, I was very much into the relationship and we had unprotected sex, and thereafter we just broke up. And then I thought that okay, let me get tested, because now I don't trust the man. And I actually went for a test. I went for a HIV test, and throughout that time, while I was sitting in the cabin and I was waiting for the result, I can't tell you what was my state. And this was just last month. And I had this test 2 years back, but then I was like, okay, might be that man. That was a kind of a sexual assault. So I was not blaming myself that it was an assault. But this time it was consensual sex. So I have to take the responsibility for whatever outcome that comes. So why to go through all that agony? People don't even know. People pretend to be in denial about STDs exist. To that, 6% of India's population is infected with STD and STI. 6%. This is the official data. 6% is a huge number. And when I ask them that, what do you think the number of people who are infected with STD? They say 15,000, 20,000 in India. I say no, it's 6%. And they get scared. Just because no one is talking about it doesn't mean syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, they don't exist. I get stories from women who have been infected from their husbands. So I think when it is happening to adults, coming to adolescents, it does take a mental toll if you find yourself infected with something where it was not you, it was your partner, right? So I think it takes a toll on your mental well-being in grappling with the reality that, oh, you are infected. You can't talk about it because of the stigma. You can talk about fever, you can talk about jaundice, and you can talk about every other disease, including COVID, but you can't talk about herbs. You can't talk about syphilis. So it's a double whammy. One, you are struggling with this. Two, you have to hide it. So it becomes all the more important to consider sexual health as like, no, it's not just, you have to talk about it. Yeah.
Completely agreed with you, Pallavi. I think it also brings up the topic of like condoms and how to put on a condom, the whole banana trick that is taught in Western schools. I think that is something personally that can be brought up in India, although I don't know, it'll be very weird to see all our lovely teachers using a banana and putting a condom on it. The mental image is horrifying because we can't even talk about sex in school. But I think that do you guys think that, even if hypothetically, let's say that we're unable to provide that kind of sex education that they need during their school life, do you think like having that kind of a session during their college orientation day helps? Like,
So before we move forward, I think Mr. Sanjay was going to say something.
oh,
Just-
so
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry.
I wanted to add something to Neti and Pallavi what they said earlier. When we talk of sex education and sex problems, sex diseases, firstly we fail to speak to our nearest people even. And if you go to toilets in India, public toilets, you will find posters of sex treatment. When we started Love Commandos, even today we get calls asking how to make love, how to fall in love, how to get a girl for love. and then the feeling of love ends at sex. The only greed is for sex. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
you are. Yes, you are.
Yeah. So the Indian culture, when you say that getting test is at 15,000 rupees, 20,000, but does a common man have that? Number one. Number two, he looks at the posters inside the toilet, secretly notes down the telephone number, visits that quack for treatment. It is common man's story. That's why the number of patients is increasing. As far as mental health is concerned, not even though we have psychiatrists, psychotherapists, but if you go to them and discuss this question, they will shy away. They will say, "Don't you have sense? You are talking to a female on this issue." Uh, Particularly when I'm talking to a female who is a doctor, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, I'm not talking as a man to a female. I'm talking as a patient to a doctor. But they feel offended because in our society, talking about sex is a taboo. Even if your children talk about it, you feel angry. I'm thankful to Pallavi what she told about her own experience with the son. But can you count the percentage of parents like Pallavi and myself? They will not be even 1% of Indian population. Our culture very great. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, showing all sexual postures of deities and other people. But when we go there, we feel, oh, great, nice. And when we come out, we don't talk about that. Is it not? It is there. But who will tie the bell to the cat? We all have been talking on this subject for years. It is more than 40, 50 years that I have been hearing. And in these 50 years, I have not found 50 people who could discuss this subject publicly, openly with anyone. They may discuss in their own close interior groups or friend circle. Have we been able to bring this change to our country, our society, our people? I think Nayati or Pallavi may like to add something on it.
Or please go ahead, Niyati and Pallav, if you
No, I
guys
think
can
I
add.
completely agree, with everything that Mr. Sanjay has said. Like, that's completely accurate. It's really, like we discussed before also, it's really about those on-ground conversations, and it's about that on-ground change. Talking about it in small circles, talking about it with your best friend versus, going out there and being like, hey, like this is an issue, and like what do we do about it now? I think, finding those real actual practical solutions is still missing. So I think he's, really figured the right point. Yeah.
Completely agreed. I have a couple of more questions, and everyone else, um, so my question is for Pallavi.
Mhm.
Pallavi, like, what do you think? Like, I know that like sex itself is such a taboo subject in India,
Mhm.
and under sex it comes polyamorous relationships and those kind of things.
Yeah.
How do you think, like, with Netflix shows like You, Me, Her and stuff like that, how do you think like it is being handled in it's being taken by the citizens? I mean, what are we doing? Like, what do you think personally?
I think if we cheating is happening in Indian society. Okay, uh, as someone who is in her late 30s, I get in touch with a lot of married couples, and cheating is happening. So people are anyways loving more than one person. It's just that the other person doesn't know about it. Okay, and what you're saying is both the people know about it. So that's the only thing that we need to do. We are already people are like accustomed to loving two people. So one is like the person who is cheating knows that I'm with her and I'm with my wife. It's just that the wife and the other person doesn't know. So we already have that capacity to love two people, more than two people or three people. We are doing it. But the only problem here is we are not. This is not consensual, and there's this I think lack of knowledge about this. Now coming to when you say that, okay, ethical, consensual, non-monogamy or polyamory, uh, because maybe if things are in hiding, we are able to cover up our insecurities. Okay, the reason why monogamy was set up as a de facto model was because not everyone is able to handle the freedom. Freedom requires responsibility. You can't be reckless with freedom, like, oh, I can sleep with anyone means that I'm just like getting in, getting out, getting in, getting out. No, that's not what freedom means. That's not even, I call it as a sexual liberation. I think sexual liberation, any kind of liberation, comes with a responsibility. You need to know how to handle it. So I think Indian society at present is not able to handle it because we need to first learn the ABCDs of the sex. Okay, okay, we can move beyond. Otherwise, trying to fit in this in the current scenario is not going to work. Though there are circles of people, there are very very smaller circles who are doing it, but it's not kind of. I would not even say, I don't know how many couples, and again living a closet existence. It's again when we call LGBTQA, like some we have to come out. No, coming out is required. So I think that's the whole purpose lies. Yeah.
I have a add up question to that. So do you think like since we like sex itself is such a taboo topic, and with do you think like not being able to talk about sex and sexual health openly out with people whom you trust, is it kind of like fueling our rape culture in India, like not being able to talk about it, like, and men just thinking that, oh, I just need a girl and I can do whatever I want with her, I don't need her consent. Because what because I think that not being taught about what consent is, or what does it actually mean to have sex with someone or being like sexually involved with someone, to them just randomly finding a girl they're attracted to and just blatantly stalking them and running behind them to get them married to you. What do you think? Like,
Rape is never ever about sex. It's about power. Okay. So I think for rape, we have to patriarchy and women objectification. It is not about sex. It's all about overpowering. People who are rapists, they have actually felt powerless at one point, at one or the other point of time. There is a book, excellent book, Why Men Rape, written by Tara Kaushal, and I read through some of the stories. So most of these men have been, I think they have their own life journeys. So it's not about taking out the sexual urges. So sex education won't help, because see, rape is something, I would say it can help in maybe intimate sexual assault, or maybe consent, communication, but rape is a gross violation. I don't think it's all about exerting power and showing that, okay, I can actually screw you around, I can screw your life, and I can be powerful. I think that's different. Yeah. Niti can add something on this.
Yeah,
yeah, Niti,
I
I
was
was
actually
actually
going to. I think that, like in your question, you talked about men, but I think very often this is the case for all genders, really. There is a severe lack of awareness. So this is what I was opening on my phone right now. It was a survey that we did with university students very, very recently. took a survey with about 250 university students in, the capital of India, New Delhi. Majority of these students are, English speakers. They're going to university, so they have at least like a basic school level education, and they are pursuing higher education. And in this survey, so we had asked them true or false. Now, this sample was overwhelmingly female, so I just want to note that. We had asked a question that consent can be revoked during sexual activity. Is this true or is this false? 24.8% said that it's false. 24.8. This is like all educated college going students living in the capital of the country. And the stats are like similar. We asked them a lot of questions about different aspects of sexual health. But even we asked them that consent is implied when a person doesn't say no and they don't try to stop you. 26% said that it's true. So, like our understanding of something as basic as consent is still very distorted. We don't understand it in the same way. We don't think of it in the same way. And, like for me, it was very troubling to see this in the survey because, we kind of had this idea that, all right, these conversations are starting at a university level, especially amongst, like most of this sample was likely, middle class, upper middle class, well-educated students. So you would expect that they have like this basic understanding that, hey, if somebody's not saying yes explicitly, it's a no. It seems very binary to my mind, and it may seem very like crystal clear to our minds, but it's not as crystal clear as we think it is. And like I said, most of the sample who answered this survey was overwhelmingly female. So it's not just males who don't have this understanding of what is consent, it's also females, it's also people of other genders. So I think that is something crucial that I really wanted to share. It's not one-sided, it's perpetuating through our entire society.
Right.
And even with people that we expect will know this, don't necessarily know it. So yeah.
Thank you, Niyati, for answering that question. I have some questions like regarding the current scenario that's going on, like with the given pandemic. We ca- we can't really like go out and give workshops like we used to, or have parades because everything has to be socially distanced. And adding on that, I think, would do you think like the rise in the number of marital rapes or like domestic violence that has increased over the period of lockdown, do you think it's still somehow deeply rooted back to the whole point of not getting a sex education in school, and the men just thinking that I am the creator of the universe, I have a penis, I have the power to make child, so I'm just going to do whatever I want? Do you think it's like interconnected, like in the given pandemic, like not even in the pandemic, like for that matter? In India, I know like there are so India is known mainly for its arranged marriages, if I'm not wrong. And with arranged marriages comes with that intense pressure of the wedding night and the things that are going to happen. And uh, I think it personally, it has been very flaunted in Hindi movies and stuff about what happens with like rose petals and all those things. But do you guys really think it happens in real life? Like, I know I'm kind of going two ways with the whole question, but it's more about like marital rape and domestic violence. And do you think like those two things go hand in hand? Like, uh,
Yes,
any
I
one?
fully agree. I fully agree that those things go hand in hand, especially during this pandemic. The cause of violence against females increased, which females who were in love, from whom their communication was snatched, mobiles were snatched, were snatched, beaten mercilessly. And in many cases, we had to take help from the government in getting them rescued. And when they were rescued, they had big marks on their bodies of being beaten because their parents were against their love. So they thought it proper that during this pandemic, when they were doing work from home or they had come home or something like that, they used this opportunity to attack and assault these females. Likewise, marital rape. Though it is not a crime in this country, which should have been, discussion has been going on at different levels, including the judiciary, for years together. But marital rape could not become a crime in this country till date. And it takes place every day at every place, whether it is pandemic or without pandemic. The male think that it is their right to bounce upon their female wives. Though the Madras High Court, Justice Kannan gave a very beautiful verdict that if a male and female have entered into physical cohabitation for more than 2 times, they be treated as deemed married husband and wife. Because in our society, simply saying that I'm in living, just tell a policeman on the road when you are going, he is just checking you to say that I'm in a living relationship. He will call you names and put 101 blames on you. Has our country been able to digest so huge number of young people are in living relationship, and particularly those who feel that their families are not going to agree to their marital relationship? The majority of those couples in living is from those. We have studied it time and again. But finally, the girls pressurize the boy and they get into a marital relationship, lawfully married. But during this pandemic, the violence has increased, domestic violence has increased, marital rape has increased, because there had been no opportunity for anybody to go out, move out. And when you talk of Hindi movies, even these Hindi movies, what do these teach us? Every Hindi movie is full of a love story. How many actors and actresses have come out in open in support of love couples facing distress in the name of so-called honor, are getting killed? For them, when they fall in love, these heroes and heroines are role models. But they never come forward for the cause. Love commandos have been appealing to them. Nobody is coming. Because their motive is simply to earn out of love stories. They have no commitment to the cause. We need people in this country who have some heart against violence. And we have always been saying, we want to shun violence with non-violent means. And females can do it. They should not simply get beaten. They have kitchen instruments like belan, chimta. They may not use it, they can simply show it. Get set, don't beat me. Otherwise, I do have power, I do have hands. Our daughters should have this courage. Why are the males successful in domestic violence and marital rape? Because there is no resistance from the females. The day the females decide that yes, we will resist each and every such thing, the police will have to hear them. If local cop doesn't hear, knock the door of the senior authorities. And we are there to help every such person. They can reach us on our website, lovecommandos.org. They can email us, they can ring our helpline. I hope Neti and Pallavi may also have some such contact system where people can reach and have their help. Something has to be done. Not only pandemic, at every time, at every hour. Pallavi, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
And Niyati?
Same here. I'm completely on board, like I think that's really, really important. And it's so hard for, like you said, women kind of taking the stand and kind of resisting. There's so many barriers that have been created, for like people who were, initially at least trying to take a stand, but now with the pandemic, it's even harder. There's even more barriers than there were before. So I think that, definitely there's really a need for change, and there's so many barriers that we need to overcome, but we need to start somewhere. So yeah.
I hope you can also come forward. I think you have already done, you have already started, you and Pallavi. But I think more avenue and more openness, more reach is required. We should be able to have reach to more and more people so that they can understand what is their right. Now, Domestic Violence Act is there, domestic violence rule is there. Husband cannot prevent wife from speaking to anybody or meeting anybody. But every day wives are beaten. And what is the police doing? They are simply getting a compromise between them. Don't quarrel on this issue. She will not speak to that person again. What the hell police has got to do with it? Under the law, police should support that female. But our police is not. Our bureaucratic officers are not, because they also come from the same male-dominated mindset. Even the female officers, because they come with the same training of male-dominated mindset, they simply do that, repeat that, instead of taking stand in favor of the females. Women commissions, they have become post offices. You send them a letter, after 2 months you will hear it has been marked to D. Again, after 2 months you will hear it has been sent to C. And it will go on hovering like for years. Output is nil. So we have to make some beginning in the society. We can do. Everybody should think that yes, I can do, we can do. All those who are listening, they should decide. We are waiting for their emails at helpline@lovecommandos.org. They can give us suggestions. You can give us suggestions. We can give you suggestions. And let us make this Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, away from these diseases. You both have been in foreign countries. I hope you will agree that Indians going there have taken these old diseases with them to these countries. Crimes in the name of honor are taking place there. Like they are not open on these subjects, there also they remain like that.
Completely agreed, Sanjay. But since we're running out of time, I would like to. I'm so sorry I have to cut you short, but we're running out of time. So I was hoping to open the floor to questions from the people in the meeting if they have any questions for the panelists. You can send it as a message, or you can just speak up. Yeah, it's very visible. It's dark outside.
Martha, any questions left unanswered? You
I
may
have-
kindly repeat.
I do have one question. It's for the entire panel, but I'm holding on to that question. If no one else has, so I'm just waiting if anyone else has anything to ask you guys, then I'll ask my question.
You can go forward and ask it, and then if there's any panelist questions in the chat, then we can address them afterwards.
Awesome, wonderful. So it's a question for the entire panel. If you were to go back to your pre-teens or teens, what would you tell your old self about sexual wellness and about life that you know today?
I would like to take that
Please
because
go
I
ahead.
think Niyati still is like just out of her teens, so she can't really.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that. I was like, I'm still a teen.
And I believe, know thyself, presume not God to scan. Proper study of mankind is man. Let us go to the mankind and let everyone become a man amongst the men. That should be our rule.
Completely agreed.
I think for me, it will be do not attach your self-esteem to the man. For a long
But
time, when I was,
Pallavi,
you know,
I agree with your experience with man. But as the saying is, man amongst the men. So we have to use the same phrase. Here, man
yes,
means
yes,
all the three genders. We know we fought for the third gender. It was we only who got the recognition to third gender.
do not attach your self-esteem to your partner.
So that's why I'm saying all the three genders.
Yes, yes. So partner, I'm using a gender inclusive word, partner. Do not attach your self-esteem to your partner. Heartbreaks happen because I was completely unprepared to know that it doesn't end the DDLJ way. I didn't know that. I thought that Raj and
So
Simran will meet, and they didn't meet many, many times.
affection and relationship should have been from both the sides. You can't have a one-way traffic every time.
Completely agreed. I think agreeing to Pallavi's DDLJ wala part, it's more like you're coming out of your Bollywood dreams into the very harsh reality of the world when that never happens.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, I'm still in my teens. So, I mean, kind of. I just turned 20. So, consider it whatever you want to consider it. But yeah, no, but I think, say, if I was to give myself advice, like, I think, I became sexually active at a very young age. So for me, I think the biggest advice would be that like boundaries are a thing and like take them seriously and like try to understand them. And also just a general advice for myself when I was younger and general advice for anyone who's that age, like you can get STDs from like non-penetrative sex. There are other kinds and there are other forms of transmission. I feel like this is something that like most people don't know. And it's really surprising because they're just like, oh right, but like I just gave him a blowjob, and I'm just like, yeah, and you still need to like figure that out, and like you can still get an STD. So I think that would be one thing, and definitely the second would be boundaries. I think we're not taught about boundaries enough, and I think it's something so at the center of all of these issues that we've talked about, like things like harassment, things especially when it's somebody which is the case for most of the cases that are reported. When it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to anything, I think boundaries are so important. And if we're just taught about them in the beginning, it oh
I'm
yeah,
still here. I'm just sitting in the balcony by the nature, and it's just getting really dark, and it's
I think it's
making me
appropriate, as the session has proceeded, it's like fade in.
Any closing remarks? Any of the panelists would like to give any closing remarks? Martha, I am loving the rhyming that you just did there.
Okay, we have a new question from Mark.
Yeah, so Mark's question is, what is the one thing you are looking forward to for yourself and for the wider community? That's a question. It's an open panel question. Anyone can answer it, or all of you can answer it.
We are looking forward a safer world, and especially when we talk about Southeast Asia, I think that we should make a beginning with demanding setting up of ministries of sex education in all these countries, because education ministries have failed. After so many years of discussions, they have utterly failed. So we should make a demand that, keeping in mind the benefit and welfare of the youth and adolescents, every country should make a compulsory arrangement either by including sex education in the present syllabus or by having a new ministry on sex education. At the
Mm.
same time, there
Ministry of
should
Sex
be,
Education. Niyati.
yeah, there should be,
We will apply.
I'm down for that.
when there can be ministry on higher education, lower education, different types of education, why not for sex education? And at the same time, every district should have government medical centers for providing medical assistance to such people who need, including mental situation, mental stress, at the same time, sex education, or come out of sexual diseases. Because at the present, people shy, they don't show what disease they are having, and they die of that. So, in view of saving numerous human lives, we should have a center, minimum one center in every district. And districts that are very large or running into hundreds of kilometers should have 2, 3, 4, 5 centers. Because lives of people are more important.
I think Sanjay brings out such a great point, and honestly, I feel we should set up like some kind of informal network and call ourselves the Ministry of Sex Education in India. I think that's a lovely note to also end on, and take that forward.
Completely agreed. Again, we're very close to the end of the session. I would love to thank all the panelists who have been present here. It has been a very amazing, engaging center session. I have faded into the dark, unfortunately, and I'm sitting in the dark. So, Martha, do you have something to add or say
But
about the
but
whole
but
session?
but we pray that you will come out of dark to the glowing sunlight and become a sunlight for the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Um, Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you so
I
much.
Thank you so much. I hope it was a very fruitful and informative session, because I know it was, because I love these kind of panels and getting to talk about topics like these. So yeah, I know you guys can't see my face, but yeah, I'm still here. Um, so yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think as a closing note, I also want to say, kudos to like Martha for putting all of this together and kind of creating this space
Yes.
where, we can all come together and we can talk and we can learn. I love the first Sugar and Spice. I'm loving the second Sugar and Spice. All around, I think it's been a lovely platform. So, kudos to you for putting it together.
Yes, thank you, Niyati, for your support. Thank you, Sanjoy, for being here. I think of you as a romantic. I really do. You're fighting for love. And thank you, Pallavi, for all your vulnerable sharing just now. And of course, thank you to our moderator for your energy and for your humor. This is a very special panel for me, because it's really not easy to do what we do, and often feel like, why are we doing this? And a lot of times we put in so much and actually we don't get paid, if at all. So I really, really want to send you all my love and support and friendship. So let's always keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Martha,
Martha.
and thank you everybody in Sugar and Spice.
Thank
Martha
you.
is on the screen, but there are many people behind the screen who are making it successful. So my thanks to each and everyone there.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll stop the recording.